Well, I just thought it would be worth sharing this link in regards to the pyramids at Giza. So they're the most famous of the pyramids, and or the Great Pyramid. They'll be referring to it as Cheops in this, or Cheops, but Cheops. There we have the um, Khafre's pyramid. It's often called, but they're going to be referring to it as Khafrem or Chefren, and that's the one that still has the casing stones at the top. And then we have Menkaura's pyramid, and in this link they'll be referring to it as Mycenaeus's pyramid. But they did a study, and it's sort of relevant to a recent upload, um, especially about Houdan theory, and they took a thermal image, but this has got to do with basically radio signals, X-rays, this type of instruments to do a look at the internals of the pyramid, and also the use of irregular blocks on the inside and mortar defining pretty much most of the pyramid. It's also be a nice link to the hotspot, as it's called, but also that recently discovered chamber above the Grand Gallery in the Great Pyramid. But I'll leave that hotspot. But the link itself, electromagnetic sounder experiments at the pyramids of Giza. I'll put the link in the description. They've got a few interesting points in here. So this goes back to the 60s, and if you read through, like I'll point out, for instance, the solar boat had only recently been discovered next to the Great Pyramid because of the rubble that was still surrounding it. And also make a very good point, which I think is worth keeping in mind, just somewhere in the introduction. Or it's somewhere in here, but basically pointing out that these types of experiments are appropriate, and that something along the lines that drilling holes in the pyramid to find chambers is there it is, and excavating the Great Pyramid by drilling or tunneling in search of hidden chambers or passageways is an unacceptable desecration of the monuments. And so, because it's become one of the sort of popular memes that we see something, let's just dig a hole, drill a hole in there. No, it's an unacceptable desecration of these monuments. And that's why I think some of those advocating for this type of intrusive study, because we of this generation demand to know, so therefore we have the right to cut holes and stuff into this. No, this is, I think, a brilliant point, one that should be kept in mind, because it doesn't extend to the pyramids as well. Thankfully, the authorities aren't listening, but there is a call by some to, let's drill holes, cut things open, and do all this, because we demand to know now we're the most special generation ever, and it is our right to desecrate these monuments. But so they're using various techniques to penetrate and have a look at the inside of a pyramid. There we get what they refer to as Chefrem would be the spelling, but that's the middle pyramid, the one that still has the casing stones on top, and you get an idea of that in the illustration. And also shows how the internal chambers here are very different from the Great Pyramid, which we'll come to later. So the Great Pyramid is exceptional in its internal chambers and structures. Most of them follow again, you can see a bit of a casing stones of Khafre's or Khafrem's pyramid. And there we get the idea of its structures inside. It's basically all underground, and the pyramid was built on top, as far as we know so far. And there's it's an idea. So there's the Great Pyramid, and you see how there is this underground portion, and that would fit with with pretty much all the other ones, where they have they vary, but they're still basically sort of down there in the bedrock or at the bottom. It's only really the Great Pyramid that has these internal structures built inside the pyramid itself. They're also talking about the construction techniques, and it'd be worth a read to look into it. So that's Mycenaeus's, or just that's tongue twister for me, or Menkaura's pyramid there. That's the smallest of the three there, of the three greatest, because there are actually many satellite pyramids around the place as well. So it's not just those three, there's smaller ones, but that's the one that they're illustrating there. And that also has that same basic structure of this underground with very little inside the pyramid itself. But also, if you read through, because they're talking about the various construction techniques, and again, as it's portrayed, the pyramids are said to be these magnificently square blocks with, you can't fit a pin in between. That's just not true. That's on the outside of some of them, yes, but on the inside they're rubble and irregular stones and mortar. And I think that's got a lot to do because, again, this geopolymer is for the blocks is taken off. The more I look at it, it really doesn't. Yeah, there's a Nuffenberger, in my opinion, because if you look at that, they again building on the idea that all these blocks are square, that they're all done with formwork. No, the vast majority of these pyramids is irregular block, essentially rubble and mortar piled in on these. And I'll put this link in the description if you're interested. You can read through it further. But main points are, because I've got some photos there, and the main points is that, so they're also talking about the construction techniques, and now that's an illustration, not an accurate description, but it does sort of fit with this, because so if you keep this sort of structure in mind, in a text it explains there are these like very accurate sort of strong wall parts, if you want to put it that way, but the bulk of the pyramid is this type. It's irregular stones and mortar. And so again, the the pyramids would be this is what makes them up. So when they go in through the tunnels and the tunnels that are already been built, this is what defines the inside of a pyramid. The inside of the pyramids defines the pyramids themselves. The outer layer is a skin, and so that again needs to again just that the mortar fill, and this is not just in the Great Pyramid but in all three of actually other ones as well. And again, these irregular blocks without the squared off and done as is this fantastic, amazing buildings. Let's not take that away from it, but let's at least be realistic and accurate in descriptions of it. It's also showing some of the quarry marks at the blocks there, and yeah, okay. So I'll put that link in the description, and that's just the. Well, there has been quite this sort of just doesn't appear in the alternative text, presentations, let's say. So that idea that the pyramid is rough, irregular blocks, and lots of mortar was used, and rather gypsum mortar, rather primitive. And if they were using geopolymers, why not just fill the gaps with that type of mortar? Would be my thinking. And that these blocks, what kind of formwork did they use to make? That it's just no, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And so as well, so I think this concept that there are like strong points in there, but the vast majority of it is rubble and fill and mortar. And you can read this again. Link will be in the description. But there's also there's one more interesting point, which has to do with the hotspot. Now that hotspot got a bit of attention, and let's just almost some rather almost verging on there. Anyway, ideas, not really hypothesis or a theory in regards to that. But as was mentioned in a lot of, so when it was a hot topic, the hotspot, even in the articles that were published, they did mention one possibility for the cause of these. And so that's the eastern face. So eastern face, that's where the hotspot is. Down in there, again, all those irregular blocks. But now that's relevant because there is a, where are we? Somewhere here. Okay, there's the Great Pyramid, and we are looking at it. That's a cross section, but you have to imagine we're looking at it from the eastern face. So in this direction is north, this is south, and so that's a cross section of the eastern face. Now, one of the explanations possible, for this hotspot, and this hotspot's only 6 degrees or just under 11 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, it's hotspot is very, promotes an idea that's not quite, it's very small. Like no one detected the hotspot by, with their hand, because this man you see here didn't get sweaty all of a sudden because he was next to this hotspot. People have been there. It was only really with equipment that they paid attention to it. But so this position of the hotspot matches up this. And again, I could try to. Well, it seems to be illustrating these cracks in the bedrock, and that particular crack there does seem to match exactly where this hotspot would be. Now, because it's a two-dimensional illustration, I don't know. Like, is it closer to the viewer, or is it on the far side? I can't be sure of that. But one of the explanations for this hotspot was because limestone, but rock under pressure, like a hot spring, when water or air or steam is under pressure, it's called not even steam. I shouldn't have said that. Water or even air under pressure gets heated up. That's why if you just like friction, or even if you just push your hands together, they warm up because of friction. You can even feel if you put a heavy weight on something, you take it off, you can feel the pressure on it will actually heat it up. And that hotspot position does seem to match up with this particular crack that they're showing here. Or is it illustrating a crack, or is it well, that's the text itself is not too clear on that, but that is one potential. But so if you're very interesting read. It's a little bit dry and academic. Unfortunately, that's considered to be not as relevant as making stuff up, essentially. And so, anyway, with that, happy if you're into it. I hope you enjoy it. It is an interesting read, and you can find some, of course, because they've also provided some other links and to go a little bit further. And with that, have a good one.